Welcome everybody to VulnCon 2024, day 2. Hope you all are enjoying it so far. Still a whole nother day to come, so buckle up. Today, we're going to hear a talk on Nestle's Unified Vulnerability Management Approach. We've got Angelo Punturiero, Jenifer Jimenez, and Martin Karel that are here to talk to you. And before I kick it off to them, I'm going to make a few announcements. First, as a reminder, session surveys are available through the conference mobile app. Cell phones, as a courtesy to the speakers, if you got a cell phone, silence it. If you need to take a call, step out. Note that all the sessions are streamed. We got cameras and we got voice. So if you have questions, raise your hand. I'll come around with a mic so you can talk into the mic so that everybody that's listening to it virtually can hear you. And if you are on the session virtually, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop it in the Discord channel for room 6, and I'll be monitoring that and I'll ask the questions on your behalf. With that, we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll kick it off to you.
Good. Thank you. So many thanks for choosing us, and hope you all enjoyed the conference as we do. So it's really first time we are in a conference that's built for us, not that we are some little part, and we can really learn what other people are doing in vulnerability management and so on. Today we came here because, well, since long time I work with kind of cybersecurity. I started with some vulnerability management actually before CVEs has existed, no? So it was a long time ago, probably. And since then, I always felt like this is the part of security that is most abandoned, no? Like it's a topic that nobody wants to tackle, or somewhere in the left in the corner. No? Everybody's focusing on more sexy things, no? Malware analysis and all these kind of things. And I always end up creating some different tools, homegrown databases, and different ways. And well, today we come to the point that when I've been appointed in Nestlé to do some kind of centralized vulnerability management, I was like, okay, wow, Nestlé, a small company, no, just like 300,000 employees, a couple of hundred factories, like thousands of websites, no, like, okay, well, I think I need to step out from a homegrown tools and Excel sheets, and we really need to build something solid, reliable, and that we can automate as much as possible and get as much as the things under control. So other part we found then that, okay, they are not really easy to find the support vendors, no? Most of the vendors, they go one direction. Actually, they cover what auditors normally ask, but they don't cover what companies need to create a successful program, no? So that was a little bit where I wanted to go. Just to quickly get a little bit feeling how other companies are, I would like to just ask, no, a little bit. So if we introduce so we are mostly talking about the infrastructure vulnerability management. No? Let's start with this part. No? Obviously, we are much more into it. You keep hearing a lot of other parts. But let's say the typical CV. You know, CV is discovered by a researcher. Then it reported to the vendor in case the researcher is a good guy. No? Then vendor published the fix. Maybe that time we cannot do too much, no? The T0, T1, that's something for us as an organization. Okay, we cannot do much. And then at some point, there is a scanner signature that is able to scan your environment and detect the vulnerability. You know? And this is kind of the basic timeline of the vulnerabilities. And now I wanted to a little bit ask the audience to understand, so is there somebody from companies who is driving similar programs? Who of you is kind of starting to run your process when the vulnerabilities is found by scanner? No, I don't know if you can raise a hand if there's somebody doing this. No, no one. That's good. So then was the second question, like who is doing like scan environment, but then for critical vulnerabilities you run some kind of ad hoc process. Yes, that's what somebody does. So I hope everybody does the third one then. That you have some kind of automation and all kind of prints, like all different type of scanning and processes together. Yeah, everybody does this. Nice. Okay, then we need to talk, right? Good. This was because basically this is what all the vendors are telling us, no? You scan and you get vulnerabilities and you orchestrate vulnerabilities and you are good. And then what we find recently, for example, we did RFP for vulnerability scanners. And actually, in average, they only cover like 30% of vulnerabilities. So we were a bit shocked with the number. Well, 30% of critical and high vulnerabilities. Then, of course, the timing of the exploitation is not matching the timing that we have the signatures and scan available. No? So again, probably many of you have better numbers and better statistics, but exploits are published between 0 and 60 days, in average 19 days. And the scanner signatures are in average like 70 days. No? So really, if you just rely on the scanning, probably you will have hard time explain your CISO why you are not doing anything with the critical vulnerabilities. No? And well, this little bit point us to the thinking like, what are different processes we can run to ensure that we cover all these different scenarios. No? So the one that is recommended by auditors, no? So you scan your environment, you have some tool that helps to normalize it. You can create some kind of internal tickets that you send to different people, and basically that will be your program, the basic program that all the auditors will ask you to do. But of course, what are the problems? As we saw, there is a big delay between availability of signatures, and you don't really have the coverage of all the vulnerabilities. And then, well, in organization like ours, you come up with the millions of vulnerabilities out of scanner, and you need to somehow orchestrate this huge number of records. And of course, nobody wants to receive this super big report and try to find what they need to do out of it. No? So it's kind of not very actionable part. And the ownership problem as well. No? So on the one server, you can have multiple teams. You don't know what to send to whom. So finally send it to everybody. And you know how it works. If you send it to everybody, everybody is accountable, nobody is accountable. No? So then there is another part of process, which could be what we found already that was very established in Nestlé, and I was very happy about it. And we kind of built on top of that, which we call some kind of advisory or bulletin approach. So here what we do, we subscribe to different feeds. We create some mechanism to bundle vulnerabilities according to patching calendars of different teams. So for example, we set up monthly, or they can have a crazy calendar that they agree 1 year in advance with different kind of downtime windows and things. And we create this bundle for them and exactly put the vulnerabilities in their scope into this. This is happening now automatically. So you basically subscribe with some CPE subscription, with you specify for each environment what type of software they manage and what is their patching calendar, SLAs, and so on. And this is then put into tickets that initiate the process of these teams. Of course, this resolves the problem of the times, so you can do this immediately. Also, it's very simple to set up. And also, this is type of process that you don't really need to deploy any scanners or anything. So it's one of the kind of the basics that we do for environments that are difficult to cover, no? All the factory kind of things, or things that you don't really have data, but you know what software the people are using. You can already run some basic process. And then, well, we were thinking, okay, but this we need to really put together, no? Because we need both. And that's where we come with this unified approach on putting things in one type of ticket. So we start with the bundle ticket. We have a ticket that has all the CVEs or all the security updates released by vendors. And then at some point when the Discord vulnerabilities are coming from your scanning solution, Tenable, Qualys, whatever, Rapid7, then we are looking at, okay, are these tickets parts, are these vulnerabilities matching the ones that we kind of already put in the CVEs? And we know exactly, no? Because we know what hosts are affected by this environment, and we know what software were subscribed. So by security advisories or CV, we are able to link them to this single ticket. And then all the vulnerabilities that not match this, they will go to some kind of fallback owner. No? So with this, we eliminate really like 80% of volume of vulnerabilities detected by scanner. They are automatically attached to a ticket that is already planned, has a calendar. We know this team is going to deploy them in specific date. And it kind of really clean up this big number of vulnerabilities. And we can calculate SLAs in many different ways as well, no? On top of this. So well, this was a little bit to introduce the approach. Of course, well, there is some example how it look like then in the practice. No? So this will be the vulnerabilities coming from the CV. Maybe it's too small, but basically it shows a vulnerabilities group by platform in a kind of advisory format, and the host group that is affected. And then later on, as soon as the vulnerability comes from the scanning solution, they are linked to the same ticket, and we can start seeing the evolution of the ticket. And this is then used for reporting, or we can see really that this January bundle now it's 47% deployed, and we can nicely have the nice reporting on this. Okay, so this was just to introduce the, let's say, the main concept of the organization of CVEs that we kind of are trying to find, like how to, well, to see in the industry, like if this is like a good concept and maybe more vendors to kind of get engaged and have this kind of capabilities. Currently, we build a custom solution with our friends from Brinka, but it's kind of, it's covering very well. But I was surprised that no other vendors are kind of doing this kind of process. On top of this, the full team, we have a lot of other activities, no? So let's say if we divide it in different sections, we monitor all the vulnerabilities, no? We build up this super vulnerability database that Angelo will explain in a moment. Then we discover attack surface, no? This also is important. So in our landscape, we need to know what assets we are protecting. Then we get all the vulnerabilities that we detect on the assets. Then we have many offensive security exercises. And then all this we are sending to different reporting and tickets and so on. And well, basically now we can start going deeper. Angelo, can you explain how we do vulnerabilities?
Of course. It is working. Can you hear me? Very good. Thank you, Martin. So, with my team, we are trying to monitor threat and vulnerabilities. What it means? We are using different data sources and different enrichment to add some information which for us is not present in the CV when the CV is published. And just to introduce the scope, we are never using the critical rating arriving from the vendor. We trust you, we trust all of you guys, but we needed to, create a small subset of the rating because it was not possible to to handle all the critical vulnerability because we are daily collecting all the worldwide release vulnerability. We're analyzing them in order to put this vulnerability on our technologies. So basically, my team is trying to resolve this kind of fear that everyone has. There is threats everywhere. How do we do this? So we start from the basis. Whenever a CV is released, we have the CVSS rating. CVSS rating tells us some basic information where we are trying to define two main actions, the vulnerability and the popularity of the CV. What is vulnerability for us? And I'm very glad it has been introduced in the 4.0 CVSS score, the automatable field, is the characteristic of the single CV to be used by any kind of malware campaign in an automatic way. We were already using some parameter coming from the CVSS vector by specific combination, as you can see in the table, but now we will also use the new CVSS vector score in order to enrich the information that we are already collecting. But there is still something missing, is the popularity of the CV. As you may see, sometimes a CV is getting more exploited, it is more fancy, it is more fascinating, the threat actor. And how we are going to get this information? We are making some enrichment. Initially, we are collaborating with our CSOC, Threat Intelligence team, who is giving us a lot of information, a lot of additional information about the behavior of the CV. Then, of course, we consult the source, the source feed of each CV, kind of reference, GitHub, etc. And then we have also introduced another very interesting process, countermeasure. What is countermeasure? So basically, we are trying to understand, of course, for a specific subset of CV, when this is applicable, if there is any network system prevention signature present in the wild. As you can see, we are how can I say, using intrusion prevention system, intrusion detection system, web application firewall, ADR. In some cases, we are collaborating with the network network team to understand if there is any signature that can be deployed in any of the network solution to protect our company against the exploitation of any specific CVE. But on top of this, what we are also doing, we are collecting all the log from each network device to understand if these signatures are getting exploited, if we have receiving attempts, hits of the specific CVE against our company. This, and also enriched with the CISA non-exploited catalog, tell us if the CVE is getting popular exploited. Of course, if we receive attempts against our company, we consider this as a target. So we are targeted by specific attempts. We may not have the technology, but the CVE, it is going to be popular for us. So thanks to this kind of, let's say, criteria, we are going to define a specific framework which gives us the possibility to analyze a specific subset of the CVE. So whenever a CVE is critical, is going to be popular exploited, it means that we have already analyzed the CVE, we know already it's critical. We are going to tag the CVE as a burning CVE, and we are going to run a specific framework on top of this, which will be talking to the stakeholder, opening a Teams chat, even calling them by mobile if it is needed. Then, as a base parameter, to detect a critical, to have a critical CVE in Nestlé, we are going. There are two conditions that has to accomplish, which is the vulnerability and exploitability. If a CVE it is either vulnerable and exploited in the wild, for us, it will be critical candidate. It is not still critical. Critical candidate means that our team is going to analyze the specific CVE and is going to define the critical Nestlé rating in a single way. So we are not copying, as I said before, the vendor rating. Also, for those CVE that we decide they are not critical, but they are high, but there is still some popularity detected, maybe after some time, we run another follow-up process in order to ensure that, whenever you notify a vulnerability, many teams say it's fixed, but it is worth to have a second shot. Maybe there is something it is left. To do this activity, we are using Brinca where we have built our ecosystem, and we are consulting many data sources in order to give us this information at once. Of course, it's not possible to talk to every team for every CVE, but every team can pull the information in our solution, and the engineering team is analyzing its information, these sources, in order to define the criticality. So in a nutshell, this is the process. Overall, it is more or less a 5-step process. The first 3 steps are completely automated by the solution. There is no human interaction. Starting from the fourth step, there is human interaction. When critical candidates arrive to the team analyzes the critical candidates, and if the critical rating it is issued, it is going to the specific patch tracking ticket with critical rating, and also for, as I said before, for those specific vulnerability that we detect as a burning or as important, we run an ad hoc framework, which may involve even escalating to the regional lead, etc. So we want to ensure that this specific subset of CVE is going to be very well managed. This combination of criteria, this combination of configuration has created for us this specific heat map where, as you can see, the critical vulnerabilities, the critical CVE are really handled in a specific part of the heat map, and in the epsilon axis you have the CVSS rating. Basically, as you can see, CVSS rating drives more or less the position of the CVE, but then our data enrichment is going to add some information on top of the information coming from the CVE per se. As you can see, you have two different examples in this slide. One is they are a very recent CVE. I didn't want to use Log4j because it was super famous. I wanted to use this use case because this gives you the idea on how this process works. As you can see, there is in bold the parameter that determine the vulnerability of those CVE. But the first one, even if it has arrived as a critical from the vendor, it is high for us. The Nestlé rating has not been issued. We took this as a high. It will not go for critical because, as you can see, the bottom part is not. This is not. We did not detect so far any exploitation of the CVE. On the other hand, the most famous Ivanti CVE that recently got released in the world, it was tagged as a critical and as a burning as well. But then, of course, now I'll pass the word to my colleague Jenifer, because after defining the criticality and after creating the ticket, we need to understand where these vulnerability are detected. And before leaving, there is a lesson learned from the experience. If you don't provide software, there is no vulnerability. Please, Jenifer.
Well, so basically, once they have explained what is our process, the idea is, okay, but how do we do that, no? So at the end, we are having a tool that it's letting us to put together all the assets, all the vulnerabilities, and on top of that, we are having some custom part that it lets us run all the things that we were not finding in other tools, no? And basically, it's really nice when you have all those kind of things, but I don't know if it happens to you when it comes, for instance, to the asset inventory, that, I don't know, it happens with the same as with the standards, no? That you might have 3, 4, 5, suddenly someone else is saying, no, I'm gonna do the definite inventory. It does not work, you have another one on top, and you never get the proper information. So basically what we are doing is we are just gathering several inventories. We just put them together in the tool. We define how we want to put the information together. We define the criteria that we want to prioritize in order to consolidate. And then we can put together, and instead of having 3, 4 records that it's the same asset, we can have only one. And on top of that, we might have enriched information, because sometimes not all the inventories, they provide the same information. So at the end, the idea is that we are putting all the information together that will let us know specifically the host or something like that, because it might happen, for instance, that Qualys is not able to know the exact name of the asset, but you have another inventory that it knows the real name. So you put together and you will have everything working, no? In addition to that, we are trying also to do the same approach with vulnerabilities. We are having several tools that it's providing us vulnerabilities. They might be from scanners, they might be from web applications, external assets, cloud. Even we have a team that is doing offensive. But the idea is that, I mean, if we find the same vulnerability reported by several tools, we should not report several times. And on top of that, the fact, for instance, of having a pen tester that has defined something, it tells you that the confidence in that vulnerability is higher than another one. So you can run a different process on that. But at the end, once you have all the vulnerabilities, the question is, who's the owner? I don't know, for those that you are working in a big companies, usually you have one server and you have several teams. Like you have the platform team that is doing, and you might have 1, 2 applications. Each application is run by different team. So what we do basically is that we have all those environments that we create. We know the assets that they cover. We know the products that they cover. That is creating those tickets that Martin was mentioning, that they are related to the bulletin 1. And as we can relate them later on, well, basically we imagine that we do a scan on a server, and you might find several vulnerabilities. Some of them, they are software applications. Some of them, they are operating system. And then you really want to know who needs to do an action, because at the end, if you assign to everybody, no one is doing, because maybe the other one is doing. But you want to tackle exactly the team that needs to do something. So in this way, I don't know, we have several vulnerabilities and we can exactly relate them. So if I manage to relate operating system vulnerability to the bulletin approach that it has, the operating system, I know exactly who's the team, because I have defined that at the beginning. So we can easily manage them. And on top of that, we can even say, okay, so I'm going to know the SLA, because I'm not going to apply the same SLA. We might have PCI-related vulnerabilities that now with the new PCI, they need to handle the SLA in a different way. So this is letting us to define the owner and the SLA in the appropriate way that we need. And yeah, of course, at the end, we might have some remaining vulnerabilities that we don't have a specific team. In our case, we might use fallbacks to the markets, because they might have some legacies that they have the same operating system, but it's not covered by the global team. So we can assign that vulnerability to them. And
Thanks, Jenifer. So yeah, basically, so these were more the automation part of the vulnerabilities. Then, as we already mentioned, we also have all the offensive security. And again, the goal is to merge all this together. No? So it's not trying to have one different process for each of these activities, but at the end, try to align all of this somehow. So, well, the typical, like we have all the typical things that companies are doing, no? The penetration testing on different applications. Again, the trigger could be, for example, that we see the application has unpatched CV, and we see that, okay, the owner is maybe not realizing the risk. So maybe this could make a trigger that, okay, for certain threshold of criticality of the application versus not really great reaction time, we might trigger the pen test to specific application. Then the red teaming, this also help us to kind of drive the decision what will be our next red teaming exercises. So we can imagine where in the company we see potentially that we might have a problem, and we need to show it via red teamings. So usually red teaming, the good thing is that they are done by external company. You can define really the scenario that once it's presented to top management, they really agree with you. So it's not only that we tell them, you have all these CVEs, you need to patch. And then we see, okay, we have this kind of path. We said external company, do this red teaming. They will actually show that this really works. And then we get attention back from management, and things start moving. So kind of help us to also do this. Then, of course, we have the bug bounty and vulnerability disclosure program with other friends from Integrity. That is also very successful. And now having all the assets together, Jenifer was explaining, this also give us more automation on how we can quickly identify who is the owner of the asset and so on. I know this is something that in small companies, it's very easy, but in our scale, this was always a challenge. And all these inventories that sometimes identifying this took a couple of days, and you need to talk to many people until you really reach this information. So now this is a little bit more automated without creating new inventory. So we really try to just merge them together. And then all the reporting. So here the one part is to automate the notification part. So usually in the past, we always had teams crafting the reports, sending emails. Now, basically, we try that all the daily notifications are automatic. So if auditors will ask, like, did you send in January? So yes, this is done somehow automatically. Then the same with the engaging to different ticketing tools. So maybe you have different parts of organizations using different ticketing tools. Like one can be the developers using Jira, another one Azure DevOps, another one ServiceNow. So this also opens up the possibility to automatically send this to different teams and basically bridge this gap between different teams using different tools. And also to collect this information. And then ultimately what we see, so this is like, let's say, operational part, where not always we get the reaction we want, but of course, having all this data aggregated, this allows us the option to create more like company-wide scoring, where we can see, like, for example, this application, we have a couple of thousands applications, not only website, but like internal product teams, that they run their own, some internal application, not developing the application, but like run it for the company, and each of them can have different components. If these components are vulnerable, then it's not easy to show that, and usually they may be the stopper, the application owner, that maybe somebody, the platform team is able to patch, but they don't get a green line because nobody wants a downtime. So now with this system, we are able to assign the risk really to each application somehow, and we are able to then show this, like, okay, this team, you have a big backlog and your risk is higher than the other team. And this creates some internal competition, and at the end, this is kind of helping us to also get things moving from the top, because usually these reports are not seen by operational team, but they are seen by top management, and it somehow, make people move more. And then also we have like a big compliance reporting that is very successful, I would say, in our company, because it's tied to objectives of top management. So somehow they when we put something there and the data quality is good, that's another big driver to push things forward. No? And here the important was the ownership part. No? So these kind of reports were not possible before until we solved the ownership problem of vulnerabilities coming from the scanner. And then on this slide, I have just like really kind of diagram how it finally looks like. So we have one platform that is getting all the feeds, and we create somehow like potential vulnerabilities. No? Then we have discovered vulnerabilities from all the scanners. We create like the real vulnerability, no? or offensive. No? Then we have big inventory of all the assets and applications and so on. And then we have countermeasures. No? Angelo was explaining we have different IDS, IPS, anti-malware, EDRs, and the ones that provide somehow link between the signature and the CV. These are the ones we can already orchestrate, and we know that, okay, for this CV, we have these different countermeasures. No? So that's kind of database of these countermeasures. This is obviously evolving platform, and now we are even thinking like, can we do TTPs for the atomic testing of the red teaming and the offensive part. No? This could be another one that we can somehow link to this, and we know that for this type of mitre monitoring, we are able to do this, and we need more countermeasures to prevent this. No? So this is constant evolution, and we have a lot of ideas now, of course, and this is basically giving us this one place where we can keep developing these new ideas. No? And each of them is exponentially giving us more power of the information we are collecting. And then, of course, on the other side, all the automation. No? So with all this data, then we can drive different automations, reporting, and so on. And well, this is just a little summary that what we kind of achieve. So we managed to centralize the vulnerability asset information. I mean, still work in progress, obviously, but without creating extra work for other teams and sending them to new place to register something, just using their normal day job place where they would do it anyway, with us consuming this. No? So really, that's a good one. Also, the vulnerability treatment. No? So it's not like we manage all the vulnerabilities. There are many teams distributed. There is a team doing application security. There is a team doing different parts of vulnerability management. But the goal is that we just used their process, we inject it to our process, and we get the information like, okay, what is the current situation? And we know, no? We can manage. Of course, we have, thanks to this, we tackle the time problem of the vulnerabilities. So we know when vulnerabilities become critical, we know we need to run Angelo's burning process. And we are no longer like it's somewhere in the depths that we forget to check that some vulnerability now is exploited all of a sudden, and we didn't kind of pick up, no? And well, all the other ones, no? We have the SLAs, we have the different processes aligned with patching calendars, and so on. One important, probably the ones you run vulnerability management, you are seeing this, like, for example, our kind of flagship model is this vulnerability combine approach that we combine all of this, but this requires a scanner, an assessment, all these different components. With this, we have like a little, like a different product offering. No? We created like several levels of different vulnerability management. And when we speak with different environments, depending on their criticality and depending on if we already met these requirements or not, we can offer them like, we have like assessment, maturity 1. No? This will be just to send basic assessments based on a subscription. No? Then we have a different model for like when they already have inventory, but we don't scan. No? And we can somehow collect these and use some kind of magic calculation to understand if they're patching or not. No? Or simply send them a ticket and they close the tickets and we understand that, okay, they acknowledge, they resolve. No? And in front of audit, you already can use this as a solid process. No? So for each of these different models, we can cover this. No? And this gives us a lot of arguments, no? And we try to onboard these new environments because usually they are always special. No? You talk to factory guys, no, we are special, you cannot manage nothing here, but okay, maybe we are not going to manage in a way we would manage a web server, but we can still give you some service and we can still give you some basics. So at least maybe they are informed, but maybe not always required to patch because this downtime can be once a year. So these different processes are also important to have in your portfolio, no? when you speak with the guys. And I think that's a little bit it. And I really would like to open up the discussion, like different, I don't know how many of you are tackling these challenges, if you find this interesting, have suggestions, or even after the talk, I'm happy to receive any kind of feedback or join partnerships or whatever. No?
Anybody have any questions? Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'll make my way forward.
So on your journey, what's the biggest pain point you guys faced or you're currently facing to make this better and faster for yourself?
I think the first biggest pain point was to get support from the management. So really when we introduced this topic, like we want to do this kind of different processes and there is no tool, because normally what everybody does is like, go to Gartner, ask who is a leader on the market and get the best tool. Yeah, but they don't do what I want. So first really to keep explaining to 1 million people in the company, like, this is what we want to do and there is no tool. No? So first really to get buy-in from the management, I think that was the first obstacle. And obviously, every time you talk to these gardeners and foresters, they will go against you somehow. Like, no, this is not. So I think first one was this one, no? Then when it starts working, to get it actually reliably work with the tools, no? Because the tool doesn't exist. So if you build something custom, you need to spend years of fine tuning until you cover each scenario. That now the feed come in this format, it all breaks, your ticket is not sent. So yeah, to get it. First, buy out from management, and then get it working in the tools that you need to somehow custom develop almost. That's I think these are the two biggest challenges, I would say, and the scale, no? Because obviously you can do this easily with the small assets, but you plug in 50 million vulnerabilities, and let's see who can handle this, no?
Cool. Hi. I just want to clarify something. Did you mention that you were using CVSS v4 already right now? Or is that?
We are going to use CVSS before
Okay.
when it is like
So you're not
more
right
present
now.
in the CVS, in the CV. So far it is not, but we are already planning to integrate a new framework in our
Okay.
definition of criticality.
My question was going to be, if you were doing that, how are you doing that at scale? But it's not.
Well, I think that is kind of universal answer. So thanks to this abstraction layer we have, we plug in any data, no? And then we can customize how these data are used. So if we see that some source all of a sudden it start giving a bad data, we lower the priority of using it. No, if we now see that new CVSS4 will introduce this automation flag, that for us is kind of key because it's what we are trying to figure out. No? And unfortunately, until now, it was not coming from any feed. No? So we had to really run confirmation process on top to the human need to check, yeah, this is really something that can be warmable automatic. And so, yes, so this is a good one that will help us.
Okay, two questions. One is the complex ownership structure. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And then the other is like false positives and not affected sort of analysis on vulnerabilities. Do you ever find that the critical burn vulnerabilities end up then becoming a not affected or a false positive?
Mm-hmm.
And then do you enter that into your system and it just kind of goes away?
Yeah. I don't know if you want to take the burning one, or right? You will go for burning. Okay. So the ownership problem is basically using the subscriptions to different what we call patch tracking tickets. So you will have imagine you have a server, and well, let's say you have one team in the organization that is managing all Windows servers, but they only manage the operating system level and maybe some global supportive applications or firmware patching and this kind. No? So with this team, you talk, and they tell you exactly, these are my CPEs that we support, and these are the 20,000 servers or 50,000 servers that we do this. So we will create, we create one environment for them. Okay, so these are the guys managing this. We create a subscription, and they will give us the patching calendar, which is kind of crazy, following the Super Tuesday, next day after Super Tuesday, they approve. And so we kind of model all this in our tool. And we start creating tickets based on this calendar but that will have only CVEs for them. Then we can have another team that is supporting, for example, the application, but it can be again global team. No? So maybe there is a team that will manage the certain application component everywhere, and maybe the same servers, or maybe overlapping group of servers. So again, we create this kind of environment. We will put them the subscription servers and so on. So then when the vulnerability from scanner comes, it will try to match the already existing ticket, and it will see, okay, this is the security advisory is present in this in this ticket, and the host is the one that is from the assets that is part of this team. Then the ownership gets assigned to these guys, no? Then there is fallback to application, and if nothing match, then we have like fallback ownership, no? Like, do we know who is application owner of the system? Then this will be the owner. We have no idea what is the system, then probably markets, no? Or somebody who needs to figure out who is the owner. No? So you can cascade then this ownership, and that's the way then you resolve. And the warning?
One part to consider. Whenever the CV is detected as a burning, it is very likely that we don't have a signature in any scanner that can detect the CV. This is something that happens very often in our environment. So as Martin was explaining, thanks to the link between the environment and their CP, we already know if any kind of team is running this specific technology. So we detect the vulnerability as a burning. Our scope is to notify this vulnerability as soon as possible to the team. It may be a false positive because team will say, okay, I run this technology, but I don't run this specific version which is affected. But in that moment, I don't care. I'm creating a bit of overload on the team asking about this specific CV, but if they are running the specific version, I'm kind of preventing any kind of exploitation before any detection of the scanner. So for this specific subset, we notify directly the affectation, the match between the technology and the CV, and we are going to ask the team to confirm if they are really affected or not. If so, we are asking to patch in the same day without waiting for the scanner to find the vulnerability. Thank you.
And it's actually create these two processes, no? One that goes like maybe this manual mode and alarming mode, and then the automatic goes to this patch tracking ticket with the schedule, no? Kind of the two parts.
Yeah, this is super cool. Thank you guys for the presentation. I mostly wanted to ask with all of your processes and where they are today, what are some of your manual hands-on challenges that you're still kind of facing today throughout your processes, whether it's in the patching and reporting stage or sort of at the remediation stage? Kind of where do you deal with the most manual labor still?
I think it's still in the kind of the making it work in the platform, no? So it's still something that we kind of envision, it's constantly improving, and you always will find the use cases where it kind of doesn't do what we expect, or we are constantly evolving. No? Now, for example, we are in middle of migration to the new version of the platform, which kind of unlock other options. Many of the things we built as a super custom in the past that were at the end they were not performing well because it was kind of not designed for the platform. Now the new platform is improving, so it's kind of constant migration, constant evolution, and well, let's see if at some point all this will be automatic and we'll be just going here to meet you guys, and we just get the tickets from the boss. Like, okay, cool, we patched everything.
And if may I, another challenge is to get the correct information about every technology from every team, because not everyone has a very good inventory of what they run. So we are mainly receiving generic information like subscribe all the, I say Python, no? And then you know there are 40 version of Python, maybe the CV is for the first one. When we are going to ask, but we don't run this version. Why you didn't say anything before? So this is one of another challenge in this process.
And that lines up with a question that we got on Discord. It says, who's responsible for building that inventory? Is it engineering, security, both? How is it kept updated? How do you maintain accuracy?
I don't know if there is answer for that. No, generally, as we said, no, we are trying to not to build too much overhead on the company. So inventory, when we speak about the subscriptions of the software for different teams, well, the big teams, we talk to them and we need to somehow maintain it, you know? So we kind of rely on that. We will not do it for every single application. We have like 8,000 applications, no? So we will do it maybe for, I don't know, 50 teams or 100 teams that you need to talk to them at least once a year to make sure it's valid. but still, yeah, this is not great. And we are now trying to see like what will be the evolution, and we are teaming up with our data science team. So we are part of Security Operations Center. We have there all the possible teams, no, like incident response, threat intel, and we have also our own data science team that's creating any kind of cool data science product for security, like in-house. And we are looking, for example, to build this, how we call it, the CP subscription builder. No? So something that will look at inventory data and try to completely match it to CPs coming from random inventories that have wrong format of CP and so on, normalize it, and then create the subscription for us and potentially maintain it. No? So this is something we are currently working on with the data science team. But let's see, there is still a lot of manual setting up.
In any case, when it comes to the inventory, I mean, we try to unify. But when we see that there's bad info, usually it comes from whoever is owner of that vulnerability that it's trying to let you. So our feedback to them is you need to go to the source. I mean, we are not going here to be solving the asset inventory because we are not doing that. It's not our mission to be having an inventory. So every time they say, no, but I'm not the responsible because that information is wrong or whatever. Okay, just go to the source and change it, but it's not on us. And at the end, as Martin was mentioning, we have those measures that they affect the objectives. So they move the ass and they make sure that they check.
And actually, this is sometimes way too, like if we see that this is become like we need to move some inventory quality data, we can we have these measures that can help us. No, we can create a measure that everything that don't have this data is non-compliant. No, and then people start filling up the data. No? So yeah, we need to distribute this work somehow as much as possible.
I had a couple other questions. I'm just trying to sort them out here. One, and I think you might have answered it already, but did I understand correctly that you have developed your own tool for vulnerability management? If so, what reason and decision did you make to develop your own tool instead of purchasing a solution?
Yeah, actually, at the beginning, when I seen the market, I wanted to develop my tool because I haven't found anything that was doing nothing close to what we did. Until I found the Brinca guy somehow, by luck. So I wouldn't say we developed the tool, but the Brinca is super flexible tool that's
highly customized.
Kind of half developed, no? So you still need to do a lot of kind of Brinca development, but it's able to do it in a not like full develop. So for example, they support maybe 80% of this, and 20% you need to do on top. No?
So how much
more we are convincing them to support more.
How big of a team do you have right now to do tool development to support that?
Yeah. So at the beginning, we were completely relying on the professional services from Brinca. So they were building it for us. Later on, we saw like, okay, we really need to get in. And I think now everybody in the team knows how to develop in Brinca at some point. And we are trying to be as much independent as possible to be able to move things quickly. No?
Gotcha. One more question I got online here is how are exceptions handled? Does it feed into the scanning tool so that the associated vulnerabilities are opted out from reporting?
Mm-hmm. So, well, we are very lucky. So our CISO says, I don't want exceptions. So this is
that makes it simple.
It was like, I love my CISO.
Yeah.
But of course, no, sometimes there are false positives and things like this. Yeah. So there are different ways to handle this. In the new platform that we are migrating to, there is out of the box process that you can select. You can say, okay, put as exception or false positive, and this triggers some kind of approval process that you can then link to your ISMS guys who already run this kind of process, and they can then put their controls on top and things. No? So yeah, it's possible now.
When you say he says no exceptions, what do you mean by that?
Well, if people come like, no, I don't want to patch because it's too expensive.
No exception.
Sorry.
Request. If we are reporting false positive, makes sense. We are making an exclusion. It's not an exception.
Different, right?
If they come, okay, we report this vulnerability, we cannot patch in the time you are giving to us. It is more kind of an extension. It's not even an exception. So at some point we are going to make it anyways. Maybe they can ask for an SLA extension, yes. But the concept of exception, something which is not going to be in place luckily does not exist too much, let's say.
Got it. Right. Does anybody in the room have a question?
So you mentioned very specific elements of CVSS you picked, like in one of the slides where you actually pick specific elements that's useful and then you enrich with other stuff. Is that a formal process or is it human? Is it depends on the vulnerability, or can you consistently say every time a vulnerability that needs to be patched because this particular score, these elements are important for you?
Exactly. So how it works. So maybe this slide summarizes better the situation. As I was saying before, the first 3 steps of this process are completely automated, and it is a process that we are running, of course, using this parameter that I was explaining before, in order to catch the specific subset of CV that we are going to analyze with the team. So whatever it is critical candidates, which is the second condition in this slide, is going to be analyzed by the team in order to define the critical Nestlé rating. So the definition of the critical Nestlé rating is the first human interaction in a full automation. Before arriving to the definition of critical Nestlé rating, there is Brinca that helps us in after configuring all these parameters in already tagging the CV in the way we want to drive the process. If there is no need of human interaction, the rating will be calculated by solution. It will go automatically to the ticket.
So this happens only for a critical vulnerabilities, this manual confirmation. We don't want to run emergency process. And anyway, you will appear on the call explaining somebody. So normally the analysts need to really go and understand very well this kind of CVEs.
So first of all, really nice presentation. My question was related to CVSs again. I see that you're using temporal metrics to prioritize your vulnerabilities. Have you considered using environmental metrics for patch prioritization or something like that? And if you've considered it, like, what were the reasons you decided not to use it in here?
Which metrics you mean?
Environmental metrics.
Environmental. Yeah, this is actually a good question. So obviously to using so you have 2 options, no? Like if you have very good inventory data, you can start reprioritizing, changing priority of the vulnerabilities based on both combinations, no? The environment score and your score, no? So this will be, for example, I've done this in smaller companies, no? You can very well define and you know exactly your requirements. But well, then you come to this kind of giant organization and the same software is run by totally random people across the company. And maybe you have a global team who you can control and you understand what they do, but then somebody on the market install the same. So at the end, what we decided, we go the other way around. So we just say Nestlé rating flat without looking at the assets. And then what asset is changing is the SLA. So we say for this type of assets, for example, exposed on the internet, which is a critical scoring and so on, the SLA will be shorter. And for assets that are behind the firewalls and I don't know, some other parameters, the SLA will be longer. So then we play on this side. But yeah, there are 2 strategies depending how good is your data. you can do that. Yeah.
So I got one more question on here and then I'll come to you. So the question was, I know that you align the scanning process with the patch cycle, but do you consider to separate them in order to use the vuln scans like auditing over the patch process?
So actually that's what is happening. The auditing is happening automatically. So you know that you get your patch tracking ticket based on the bulletins. Then the vulnerabilities are linked to this process and you are kind of controlling that this ticket is getting resolved. No? So you kind of audit the patch tracking ticket. In the past, we had, for example, metrics that were checking the deployment of this package, no? And that was somehow less reliable, no? Because they could maybe not install properly the package or there was some issue. It will still show that they've done this, but now this kind of confirms. So we know exactly this vulnerability is related to this this bundle. They are now patched. And also if we find another vulnerabilities that somehow are not subscribed to this team, then they are again, we find them with the scanner and we can treat them on separate way. No? So we can again back them in. So I think with this process, we cover the both use cases somehow.
Hi, thank you for the talk. Real quick question on your countermeasures. Do you find that you're instituting some of these technologies as like a secure by design footprint, or are you tagging your individual environments and applications with what individual countermeasure tools you have available to you based on that product or infrastructure?
So we don't do it yet. It's like very granular stage. So we really plug in some of the typical countermeasures that we found in the company, like we have IDS, IPS. Yeah, yes, this would be probably the ideal process, but we somehow took it for now. We took it only on the affecting of the popularity. So we know we get hits. Yes, in probably the evolution could be, but we didn't go this far with countermeasures to really know exactly these subnets are protected, these are not, and depending on the host, you can do something. But still, it's very tricky topic because I was thinking about it, but it's like, okay, do you really say if you have IDS signature that you are protected? We had this discussion with factories many times. No, they say, can you lower my rating because I have IPS in front? Yeah, but if you inspect your factory is down. Okay, it's not spreading to other factories, but should I lower the risk because there is a countermeasure? Probably not. So we have still this discussion in the company going on, but I'm more like, okay, this is something nice that we orchestrate, but I wouldn't like relax SLA because of that.
I want to thank Jenifer, Angelo, Martin for your time. This has been great. If you had questions that didn't get answered, either online or in person, drop it in Discord and maybe you guys can take a look at them. Look at the channel 6, room 6.
And well,
All right.
we are here, so anyone who wants to talk to us.
Yep, and they're around.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks.